All right, for now, let's now go across to my colleague Shweta Rajpal Kohli, who in fact is being joined for an exclusive interview with Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw.
Thanks very much for that, Neha. Joining us now, one of the most prominent voices of corporate India, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, chairperson of Biocon. Pleasure to have you here on the show, Ms. Shaw. Let me start by getting your overall view on what's going on in the current session of Parliament. A lot of hope and expectation that the monsoon session would see some business going through, a push to the reform agenda. But right now, the deadlock continuing. Your thoughts on what's really going on right now and how is it going to impact the economy?
You know, I think it's extremely important for this session of Parliament to pass certain very key resolutions, especially that pertaining to GST. And I must commend Shashi Tharoor for speaking his mind in a very mature and responsible way of saying that some of the key issues should not be stalled by the opposition in the way it is happening. So I think GST is certainly one which is extremely high up on the economic agenda, which everyone must support. And considering the fact that GST is something that was actually mooted by the previous government, I don't see why there should be any delay in passing that.
At the same time, the demands of the opposition are really around resignations of key BJP leaders, given what we have seen happen over the last few weeks. Many would say it's also payback time, because in the past we saw when UPA was in power and BJP was in the opposition, there was a lot of disruption even then, and there was in many ways this disruptive politics that was playing its part. Your thoughts on the fact that the Congress saying that our demands are legitimate in terms of resignations of the top leaders?
I think, this whole political system needs to rise above these kind of accusations and allegations. That is, of course, necessary, and it can be handled in a different way, but not by basically holding the Parliament to ransom on discussing important national economic, agenda items. I think these are ideas, these are agendas which must be, looked at in a very serious way, and things like GST should not be thwarted because of other, political kind of mudslinging.
All right, political mudslinging indeed. And how important is it for the country to see the GST bill going through in this current session? And what will be the impact if it doesn't go through? Already we've had top corporate India leaders like you expressing concern about the slow pace of reforms, the high expectations with which this government had come. If we don't see GST getting through, and if we see this kind of deadlock continuing, what will be the overall impact on the economy and the image of this government?
Well, I think everybody knows that GST is fundamental to some of the economic reforms that we are seeking. And we know that we want to implement this by April 2016. Now, if you can't, pass it this session, then you're going to delay it. And we're going to lose another very valuable year of economic development and growth. I think industry needs this fillip. And if GST doesn't happen this time, what are we doing? You are only crippling and, you're only creating detrimental factors to economic growth, which is going to cause a huge dent on our economic recovery. I mean, you're talking about job creation, you're talking about manufacturing growth, you're talking about improved sentiments in consumer confidence, but all this is going to be negated if you don't pass this session.
In the past, you've also talked about, importantly, the opposition following an anti-development agenda. Here, I'd like to refer to the land acquisition bill. While many believe that, yes, in terms of the GST bill, in principle, the Congress supported it, and we may see some of these issues getting ironed out. And if we see the stalemate really ending in Parliament, there is hope that GST would go through. But big question marks really on the land acquisition bill and its future. How important is that for the economy? And is there a message you would have for both the opposition and the government at this point?
So I think, land acquisition bill, it needs to be really looked at in a very different, innovative way. I think state governments need to now take hold of the land acquisition bill and fine tune it to what they want to do it at a state level. I think, there are many, many interesting models that have been adopted, and those states that are going to be progressive about land acquisition bill will do well. I mean, I'm very impressed with the Maharashtra land acquisition bill, where they have actually allowed, change of land use in the hands of the agriculturists and landowners who can be farmers. I think this is a very positive step. And if other governments can actually look at this, maybe they will actually benefit from this scheme. But the moment you make it into a kind of a national agenda, it seems to become a very, very contentious issue. And I think it needs to be, taken off the central table and made into a state level kind of decision-making process, where I'm sure you'll see many of the, land acquisition bill provisions will be adopted. Because many of these are very progressive. But it's very difficult for the government at this stage to convince the opposition that it is pro-growth, pro-farmer, pro-development. So let the states decide.
Okay, a quick message that you would have for both the opposition and the government at this point, when we are seeing the deadlock, the stalemate in Parliament continuing, no business being done in Parliament at all.
I feel India has a unique window of opportunity to grow, to get much higher investment. We are seeing that there are geopolitical reasons why India can be the most preferred investment destination. But I think if the way we are going about our economic agenda with this partisan politics approach, which is just not at all focused on the development agenda, is not going to help us get to this position and take advantage of this position. So I really wish the opposition would really focus on the development agenda, the growth agenda, and they can still continue with their other issues in a different way. But please, I request them not to hijack the development and economic agenda for the sake of really sticking to other issues.
All right, let me shift gears slightly and talk to you about another issue that has been occupying considerable mind space and has been grabbing headlines. We've seen a successor being appointed at TERI, and you're among the prominent people who are on the governing council of TERI. Explain to us the need to have the successor, because the concern really is that the press release didn't quite mention the sexual harassment case and link it to the entire succession plan.
I think the governing body has been responsible. They have allowed due process to go on. They have actually appointed a Director General designate in Ajay Mathur, and I think they prevented the snowballing of a very controversial issue. So I think what the governing body has done is to do what it best could under the circumstances, and I think everyone wants to see this institution really progress and continue in a way that it doesn't get tainted with controversies. So I think this is what we have done, and I think it's the right thing that the governing body has done.
Indeed, many would believe it is the right decision taken by the governing council to announce a successor, to have a successor in place for the institution that has clearly suffered on account of the case. But the press release clearly saying that the search for the successor began in September last year, which is almost 6 months before Mr. Pachauri was accused of sexual harassment by a junior colleague. In that way, this sidetracks the issue of the sexual harassment case. Why the need to mention that? And in many ways, the press release not clearly linking, also going to the extent of praising Mr. Pachauri, was a bit of a concern that was expressed after the release was issued yesterday.
Well, I don't want to comment on that, Shweta, but I think basically, we should look forward to the right steps being taken. I think the fact that you're seeing a successor, you're seeing the whole issue being addressed in a way that actually augurs well for the institution, I think we should look at it positively and not dwell on the past.
Fair enough, ma'am, but I'd like to ask you one particular question. We're being told by our sources that you're one person in the governing council who actually took a very, very strong stand on the issue, to the extent of saying that you're going to step down from your position in the governing council if a successor is not announced. If you could confirm that to us, and the reason why you felt it was absolutely important to have a successor in place for Terry.
I don't want to make comments on that, but needless to say that I think this is the right decision taken by the governing body, and I think Terry's interests as an institution and its future are important, and I think the governing body has prevented greater controversy from cascading into something that would have been uncontrollable.
And you believe that Terry hereon can now emerge out of the past and the shadow of what has really happened, the harm that the current ongoing case and controversy has really done on the institution. You do believe that it will be able to emerge hereon from the entire issue and the controversy?
You know, Shweta, I don't think any institution is about one person. I think institutions are built by people and a whole group of people, a whole team of people. So I don't think we should even think that Terry's name will be tainted by one single individual at any time.
Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, always a pleasure to talk to you and have you on the show. Many thanks for joining us and sharing your views on a number of issues. Thanks so much. We're going to slip into a quick break at this point. On the other side, Neha will be back with the other top stories.